Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and happy Sunday, August 10th of 2025. Now, this past Friday was 8/8, which is, if you look at astrology and you look at all that stuff, then you know it's what's dubbed the Lionsgate portal. And it's not just on that date, but there's a small window of time where there's this portal in astrology that apparently you can manifest, you can make improvements in your life, and all kinds of things are surrounding the Lionsgate portal. And so at the beginning of the week, I wrote in my journal, 8/8/2025, Lionsgate portal thoughts. And then I sat with that for a while, and nothing kind of came in, so I shut my journal, and I was kind of really wanting to maybe make this video for today with some inspiration surrounding this Lionsgate portal. And then as I kind of thought about it over the next couple days this week, I had some interesting thoughts come in. So I'm just going to share this whole little journey through this week and the Lionsgate portal that you might think is woo-woo, you might think is crazy, or you might totally believe and love it and appreciate that there are different energies and frequencies that happen during different times of the year, and certainly based on astrology if you study it. And I've come to some interesting conclusions that feel true to me in this particular moment where we find ourselves as humanity in August of 2025. So here's how I started the week. I can use or know about the energies and meaning behind this time. Somehow I can't get excited about it like I have in the past. Even last year, it feels irrelevant somehow. So even last year, it felt relevant for me, and I did all this stuff, and I thought about all this stuff, and I journaled everything, and even last year, but it feels irrelevant somehow for where I am right now. So then I wrote this, while feeling like I've landed on something important, so it feels irrelevant somehow, while at the same time feeling like I've landed on something important. These portals, these energies, all of these things outside of us are still controlling us in a way, kind of a big way. Okay, because if we're always waiting for a portal, waiting for the planets to line up, waiting until Neptune or Jupiter or Uranus goes into your sign or out of your fifth house, and I think there's something to all of that. I really do. So it feels like these portals or energies, all of these things outside of us are still controlling us in a way, kind of a big way. It can feel fun, like guidance and relief, right? Like someone or something is taking charge for a bit. Because I know that that's felt true for me. I kind of feel like, oh, okay, this is why I feel this way, because of this portal, or because it's the new moon, or whatever, okay? So it kind of feels like a bit of a relief. Someone's taking charge, right? And I get it because I've been there through all of that. That's why it's like, I think this is something really important to share that kind of landed for me this week. So it feels like guidance or relief, like someone or something is taking charge for a bit, or even just an explanation of why I feel this way, or what kind of action I should take because of this. Okay? Interesting, right? Right now, I feel that the most important thing I can do or feel is neutral and observant. You know, I have felt in this most interesting neutral place, and it goes back, I think it was a month ago, I was just feeling this certain mellow that just, it still has landed in me, where it's now not, it's a good mellow, but it feels like the most important place for me to be is in a neutral, observant place. And then this is what I felt. I also have deep intuitive knowings just by tuning into myself and by getting quiet. Because I don't need to wait for a portal. I don't need to wait for that. I have these deep intuitive knowings just by tuning into myself, letting myself be quiet for a minute and be still, be a neutral observer. Then these massive intuitive hits come in, and they come in a lot more often, is what I'm finding. Just by tuning into myself and getting quiet with people, with situations. And then I wrote this, it's odd, but oddly wonderful, right? It's so interesting to me. All of these things that used to kind of feel like, oh, this feels like a relief for me. This feels like, oh, this makes sense. So then I thought, well, you know what, do a little bit deeper dive into this whole thought process. And then I came up with some really great questions, because to me, these are questions I think all of us can ask ourselves while we're walking through these times. And if astrology and portals and all these things are super important to you and they give you guidance, I'm not saying to ditch all of that. This is my own journey and my own thought process. And next year at the Lionsgate portal, who knows, it might be different. I might feel differently. But this is where I feel like I've landed. So to me, this Lionsgate portal is not about manifesting my dream life. And, I think it's interesting because, we go out, we think it's the new moon, the full moon, the Lionsgate portal. We're going to go bathe ourselves in cosmic light. And this is not a bad thing, but I don't believe it's all about that, okay? So what this feels like to me is it feels like this is a distraction. For the deep work, the important work that we are here to do right now, it feels like a bit of a distraction. And every single channel, spiritual channel, astrology, channelers, all of the channels that we might be following are, I believe it's a distraction. At least it feels like it's a distraction to me right now. So I feel like what's happening for me is this is just another feel-good ritual. And I want clarity, and I feel like we're in a time where clarity is urgent, and we don't need the distractions, okay? And not only do I want clarity, I want to take action. I don't want to just wait for the portal to open and then close and then the next one to come and the next one to come. And like I said, the planets to line up and be perfectly in my sign. It's just not feeling like that's congruent for me. Then I wrote this, it feels like we're not at the beginning of the spiritual awakening anymore. I feel like we're standing in the ashes, in the bombed out city, metaphorically. In fact, I'm the one who posts on our Instagram. I create posts and I put up stuff, and a couple days ago I put up an edgy post that I had a really beautiful picture. Well, I didn't actually put it up, I created it. And then I took the same saying and I put it on a picture of a man standing in the rubble. And it was still a beautiful picture, but it was more what fit the quote. And then I thought, okay, I don't need to go there and post this in my beautiful feed of Barlow Herbal because I'm feeling this at this moment. So I used my better judgment. I actually checked in with my son Scott and said, hey, what do you think about these? And he's like, okay, that doesn't really fit our brand, but okay, but do what you want. So I didn't post it. So I think a big part of this for me with this whole thing, and I'm just going to touch on this briefly, is it feels like, and this is where this comes from, is I just watched an interview on the Inspired channel with John Nolan, and I know quite a few of you who are here found me through there, and I thank you for that, for coming on over here. But he just did an interview with Greg Brayton, and I have been following and reading and all of Greg Brayton's books for decades. I love him. He's very close into the same age category as I am, and he's always been someone that I feel like I can get truth from. And his latest book that he just released earlier this year is called Pure Human, and it's a beautiful, beautiful book. And in this interview he just did, he talks about giving away our sovereignty to AI. And I think that this is really, really, really important. So the piece of this, it feels like these portals are a part of giving away our sovereignty to AI, which can generate whatever we want and can feed us in the algorithms for where we are and what helps us feel good. It gets to know us very quickly. And this is a part of giving away our sovereignty, even if it makes us feel good for a minute. So here's what I wrote. AI is already here. It's been around for a long time, but it has been released into the wild, like out into the wild. And once you release something like this, you can't rein it back in. So this is something to be of the highest discernment with right now, okay? What I think it's doing is it's training us to behave in predictable manners. It's training us. It's already doing that. And if you're aware of it, you might use it to help you write an email. Okay, fine. You might use it to help you research something quicker. Okay, fine. But we're talking about the real stuff that makes us human and keeps us human, okay? So what I wrote here is I find that most people are not resisting it. They're grateful for it, and they're grateful for the convenience of it, okay? So yeah, it's taking away our sovereignty is what I wrote. And then this came in. The timeline that I've been talking about this for a few years now, the timeline has already split, okay? One path, one timeline leads to full sovereignty, and the other one leads to what I feel like is a seamless integration with the system, with the other system that includes all the systems, not just the AI, but the medical system, the religious system, the education system, the pharmaceutical, all of that. That timeline leads to full integration to that, okay? So then I wrote this. When we stay in between the timelines, so maybe you're sitting on the fence, like, oh, I kind of like the conveniences. I like getting answers without having to sit and think about it and write about it and ponder on it and meditate and tune into my higher self. I like the convenience of getting a quick answer, or just going along with the crowd, going along with the river as it flows, because it's easier. It's easier than swimming upstream, okay? But I feel like to stay in between is slowly sliding toward the timeline that you don't want to be on, because it's going to pull you over. If you're sitting on the fence with any situation or any decision you need to make, it's going to pull you over to the one that you probably don't want. So you either jump off the fence onto the timeline you want. Choose. I think it's okay for the people who want to choose the timeline that I don't want to be on. I think it's okay for them, because that's the timeline that they, and the experience that they choose. I think it's okay, personally. And I think that we are in a place where you're not going to be able to choose very shortly, okay? So here's what I wrote about the Lionsgate portal when it comes to this. So this portal, if it means anything, this is not a cosmic gift, okay? To me, it's a mirror. Look at this portal, if you want to look at it in any way, as a mirror. Where are you? Where do you sit? Sit down and write. What are your deepest belief systems, and where do you truly deeply, to the soul, to the absolute source of who you are, where do you want to be? And then choose, okay? So what it's doing, this mirror is asking you this: are you real? Are you really real? Or are you letting yourself be written or swept away? Or you're letting yourself just be written by something else or someone else, or a higher source that is not you, a different source that's not you. Okay, so let's see. Then, okay, and then I wrote this. Right now it's time to guard our mind like it's something sacred. This is the creativity, the intuition, especially the creativity and the intuition. It's time to guard those. Guard those with your very life, with everything you have. Every unchosen thought is like an intrusion. So every time you tune in and you buy into someone else's thoughts, someone else's channel of, and there's so many channels, and that's, in a way, that's great. You can go on and you can learn stuff. But if you're counting on that to guide your thoughts that aren't yours, that's an intrusion. Look at it as an intrusion. Every habit that we consciously build, that we unconsciously build, is like you're leaving an open loop, okay? everything that is a habit that you didn't consciously build, whether that be the habits that you take when you take care of your physical body, the habits that you create when you get out in nature, when you disconnect from technology, when you show compassion and empathy. And maybe you feel like you can do all of these and still be plugged in. Maybe you feel that way. That's an interesting thought, right? So then I wrote this: if we still depend on the system for things like comfort and security and validation, then we're not as free as we think we are. So if you still depend on these systems, if you open up your Instagram feed, your Facebook feed, your YouTube feed, your Rumble feed, I don't care what feed it is, if you open that up because you're looking for something to validate you or even just interest you, you're missing the point, okay? And you're not as free as you think you are. So from my perspective, it's time for us individually to build what AI can't duplicate. This is one reason I think I'm so interested and so I'm so anxious to get to my painting sometimes, because when I paint and I'm in just this flow, and I have my favorite playlist on of music, and I've been playing the same playlist for a few years now, and it's just got some of my favorite beautiful music, some that make me kind of feel like moving a little bit, but some I sing along to, and they make me feel good, and I'm just creating, I'm painting. And I feel this way when I'm out in my yard weeding and I don't have anything in my ear. I'm not listening to anything. I'm just talking to my plants, appreciating the weeds as they grow up into flowers and through my herb garden, and I'm appreciating that they're there and Mother Nature's doing their thing, but you know, there's a communing that's happening while I'm doing this, and my anxiousness to get out there and do that, the weeding, the taking care of my yard, the painting, I have had this massive something bubbling inside of me that something is going to start formulating in, like some new formula that I need to bring out to a humanity, and I have formulated some formulas that are going to be coming out with some like-minded beautiful souls that I formulated these for, that I'm really excited to be able to help them share that with you. So there's a piece of me that I get to create and share, and the thing is for you to find those things that don't keep you plugged in, that keep you plugged into your creativity and your intuition and what makes you a human, right? A consciousness in the human form right now. So we need to remember that we're being pushed to forget all this stuff. We're being pushed to forget that we can be creative and we can build things, and we can know when something's off or something's good, right? So our nervous system is more accurate than anything else. So if your heart rate speeds up, or you get that gut feeling and tells you not to go this way, drive this way, a certain way, or to maybe slow down, there might be something you don't see up ahead of you. Our nervous system is so tuned into that, and we're being disconnected from that on a pretty exponential level at this point. It's coming at us faster than we're going to have time to think about. This is why it's important not to sit on that timeline fence. It's so important. Okay, now this is the next part, and I've been wanting to share something a little deeper on this next part, because I also have close people situations, close family members in my area, in my world. Well, let me read what I wrote, because I've been connecting with a few people via email throughout these last few years who are on the same path as I am, okay? So for those of us who are aware and are on an ascending timeline, and this is not to say bad things about the people who are on a different timeline, they're just on a different line. For those who are on this timeline, the timeline that I'm on, feels like, we like to say we're awake, we're aware, and this is simply verbiage, okay? And we're living in this shift, those of us who are living in this shift, but we are partnered with someone who isn't, okay? This is one of the most challenging, I feel like it's an initiation. I think it's the most challenging thing of all. And for those of you who I have communicated with via phone over the years, and a few of you over email over the years, I believe that this is the toughest initiation of being a divine spark of pure love and consciousness, and realizing that and wanting desperately to be on this timeline, but we're partnered with someone who isn't, okay? And this is felt like, for me to even bring this up, feels like a tiny bit of a betrayal, but I don't mean it this way, okay? So let me continue. What I feel like is happening is this: I'm not only navigating my own awakening, I'm not only navigating this and peeling back all the layers, going down all the rabbit holes, but what I feel like is happening, I'm holding what I like to consider tension. There's a tension in our own households of holding two different timelines. It's such a fascinating place to be, right? So then I wrote this. This feels like a really brutal kind of discernment. It feels a little brutal at times, until you land in the place of when you're neutral and being an observer. And then for me, I've landed in this place where I can stay in a full place of deep respect. And I do think that there will maybe reach a point where I'll have to jump off the fence, okay? We cannot drag someone into the timeline we want them to be on. It's nearly impossible, okay? And here's what I wrote. We cannot plead with someone, and we also can't stay silent to keep the peace. And this has been me. I've had thousands of not pleasant moments, and I've come to these really deep realizations. And this is where and I know I keep bringing this up ever since I talked about the mellow, but it is so important, and it was such a it resonated. It was such a deep realization for me that when you come to this place so clearly, it makes all the other angst fall away, because your discernment is so clear. It's so clear. So the truth is this: we will either grow this is what I've come to. We'll either grow in different directions until the gap becomes unlivable, right? Or this, and this is always an option, or we can hold our perspective so fiercely and so cleanly that it invites something dormant in your person, or in your whoever it is that we're talking about here. You can hold it so cleanly and so clearly that something in them might awaken, right? And it's interesting because for me, I have noticed some shifts. It's not as fast as I would hope, but time will tell, and time will tell fast. I don't think this is going to be. So here's what I wrote: keep going, love, but don't shrink. Don't shrink. You can't shrink yourself for someone else. I don't care who they are. You cannot shrink yourself for someone else. I kind of don't think I expected to go into this as deeply, but I think it's good. And I've been wanting for the last couple of years to really delve into this, and I might just do a whole video about that, because there are so many people that are in the same position, and it's really, really important to address it and to look at it, to go at it head on, especially now. We need to stand in our frequency and let reality sort itself out. Because you know what I believe? I believe that it will. And I'm already seeing this in my life too. Okay? Let's see. All right, so let me skip ahead to some of the questions, because to me this is like, that felt like a good place to probably leave that little bit of passion I was bringing out there. Okay, so here I'm going to end with a couple things, these questions, and then a couple of thoughts. So number one is this: where are you still performing awakeness instead of living it? Where are we still performing that we're awake And this is where the whole Lionsgate portal dropped in for me. Is it like, oh, the portal is great and I'm manifesting and I'm congruent with the frequencies, and to me that feels performative. And it might not for you, but for me right now where I am, that feels performative. So where are you still performing awakeness instead of living it? Awakeness is quiet. When you are really there, you're not counting on anything happening in the cosmos. Okay? What have you outgrown but are still clinging to because it's familiar or convenient? This one is really important. What are you still clinging to because it's familiar and it feels convenient? That is a big question. Okay, if you stopped being agreeable, who would stop liking you? And would that actually matter? This has happened to me since the beginning of 2020. And now it's deepened. It's deepened to a place of, wow, I can spend a whole bunch of time, a few days by myself, and I'm as happy as a clam. If I don't go out and meet someone for coffee or meet someone for tea or all the stuff I used to do. In fact, many of you, if you've been with me for a long time, know that I had a big career in fitness. I used to own my own gym. This was way before I started my dad's company, which was almost 25 years ago now. So when I restarted my dad's company, I kept teaching classes. So, I love exercise. I love group fitness. I love putting on a microphone, putting on music, and having a room full of people and their energy. It was one of the funnest things that I ever did. So for 40 years, I taught group exercise classes. And in March of 2020, I was only teaching one class a week at that point. Every single Saturday, I had this massive, beautiful, 50 people would show up almost every Saturday, all throughout the year, and it was a step class. And we used to call it dance party step. And I would arrange my vacations around it. It was so much fun. And what happened is I went in to teach my class. It was the first Saturday in March, I think, of 2020. And I said, see y'all next week. And that was my last class. And that was over 5 years ago. And there was a lot of friendships these people were, I socialized with them outside of the gym. And some of them I traveled out of country with. A couple of good girlfriends. We took a couple of big trips, to Barcelona and to Paris. And, I had a massively huge, vibrant group of friends. And my friendship base is still big and it's still vibrant, but it's completely different. The people that are in it are completely different. And for this, I am so, so grateful. I would have never, ever connected with these people, like the Nolans from the Inspire channel. These are now some of my dearest, closest, most beautiful friends. And I love them. And I can't imagine not having them in my life. If this shift hadn't happened, and this timeline split, this chaos, this shift that humanity's going through hadn't happened, they would not be in my life, along with a bunch of other people. And I'm so grateful for that. So if you stopped being agreeable, who would stop liking you, and would that actually matter? Okay? You have to be courageous, and you have to be brave. You have to be willing to take a risk. You have to be willing to not only take a risk, but also you have to be willing to sit with yourself and get uncomfortable in that place until you like yourself and you're happy with yourself. And I know that from some of my communications with people that are watching this, you are already there too. You have landed in that place as well. And it's a very beautiful, comfortable place to be. Really, it's amazing. It's not easy, but it's a good place to be. So then this question: what truth have you been sitting on because you're afraid of what it will cost you to say it out loud? This is really, guys, where journaling comes in, and it's so beautiful because you get a chance to write your thoughts out before you actually have communication with maybe a group of people, one person in particular, a certain situation you need to clear up or whatever. Where are you just being agreeable? when you need to just say it. So I'm not saying say it with anger, but say it with truth. That's the point. Are your daily habits building resilience or just numbing you quietly? This is important. And I keep saying that with certain things, but this to me is like, are your daily habits building resilience? Not just for your body, but for your soul, for you, for what makes you you. Or are you just building habits that numb you out? Every morning you look at your favorite YouTube channel and you watch all their stuff, and then you get caught down the rabbit hole of all the things, and you are just giving into the system that's trying to get you on that timeline. Okay? Are you pretending to be for the sake? Who are you pretending to be for the sake of keeping a relationship, a job, a persona, or an illusion alive? So who are you pretending to be to keep all these things alive? That is a massive question. It's time to be the real, authentic you. And it's not gonna be comfortable. Like jumping off the fence. Jump off. Don't sit on the middle of the fence anymore. I think that we are really getting to a place where you're not going to be able to choose. Because once you are on a certain timeline and the timeline is speeding up exponentially, you're going to go on the timeline you might not want by default. Okay? Do you trust your own nervous system more than you trust your phone? Be honest. Okay, so try this. Here's an idea. You've got to go somewhere and you know it's during rush hour traffic. And there are two different ways you could take. Do you open up your app on your phone and see which one's the quickest? Or do you tune into your intuition? Okay, that's a good test because it's not a dangerous test. It's an easy test. So do you trust your own nervous system more than you trust your phone? That's a good one, right? Okay, what are you still waiting for permission to do, even though no one's coming to give it to you? Are you waiting for someone to say, hey, the Lionsgate portal's open. You can now manifest all the abundance you want. You can now create the business you want. You can now give yourself permission to retire. You can now... No one's coming to give you permission. You need to give this to yourself, okay? So what are you waiting for permission to do, even though no one's coming to give it to you? No one's coming to give you permission. You can give away your power for someone else to give you permission, or for something else, or something. You can do that if you choose to. Okay? And then this final question. If the system, whatever system it is you're dependent on, or just the system, collapsed tomorrow, what part of you would still know who you are? For me, this one is becoming crystal clear and very easy. Very easy. I mean, I sometimes think, what's the worst that can happen? And I think that's probably a really good little exercise to give yourself. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Jot it down, or think about it, contemplate on it. Sit still with yourself and really think about that. One of my favorite things to do now is to not listen to anything while I'm walking. And as I've told you many times, I have this lovely little 5-mile walk that I do. I go out my front door, I go through my neighborhood, and down to a beautiful walk by a river, a parkway that goes through my neighborhood and through my city. And it takes about an hour and a half, and I get so much, I solve so many problems, and I tune into so much, and I get so many moments of clarity and creativity when I do that. You don't always have to be distracting yourself. It's like, oh, well, I got to catch up on the latest podcast because they've got a great, interesting guest on there. Save that for another time. Give yourself these moments where you can truly, truly be your authentic self with your higher self, with your connection to the divine. It really can be that simple. It's not that it can be not easy, but it is that simple. Okay? So here's what I wrote. Here's what I believe right now. At some point, even the portals have to be released. Okay, not because they're not real, not because they're not useful at times, or they might have been meaningful for you, and they might be meaningful for me again next year. Who knows? Maybe I'll dip in and see what's happening, or maybe, I don't know. Okay, we don't need permission. or astrology to give us the permissions. Okay, we don't need astrology to give us permission. So this is maybe the tie-up of the Lionsgate portal message from me this year, right? If we're still waiting for the next assignment or next alignment to do what we already know we're meant to do, then I think what's happening is we're stalling. We're just stalling. We're not evolving. We're just waiting for the next alignment, the next portal, the next energy shift. We're just waiting for it to give us permission, okay? So the Lion's Gate might symbolize a threshold, okay? I'll give it that. But we are the one who either steps through it or stays behind, okay? So if you love the Lion's Gate portal and everything it represents, I will say this one thing. In the middle of 2025 where we are, in the middle of Lion's Gate, if you're watching this on August 10th, which is when I'm dropping this, you do have an opportunity to step through the portal, jump off the fence. Jump onto the timeline fully that you want to be on, okay? But we need to remember that we're the ones who are taking the steps, or we're the ones staying behind, okay? So what this means is we need to shred everything that feels like a crutch. The stories, the identities, even the spiritual bypassing. We might be outsourcing our spirituality to someone that sounds good on the internet. So, and I'm not that person. I am not that person on any level. I am the person along on this journey with you, figuring it out, and definitely I know the timeline that I am on, and I am gonna, the little bits of me that are still on the fence, I'm telling you, this, just thinking about this and journaling about this week has motivated me to jump off and fully onto the timeline that I want to be on, okay? So let's see. So here's where I am at right now. So there's what I believe, and here's where I am right now. I need to let the portals go, and I need to let the rituals go. And I'm not talking about the rituals like the habits and those kinds of things, okay? And here's an interesting thing that I wrote down. I need to let the calendar go, and I need to keep what's real, all right? I find that if I'm still holding on to all these tools that once opened me, because I did used to think, oh my gosh, it's the Lionsgate portal and I can really feel it. If I really stop and I pay attention, then I'm going to utilize it, okay? I realized I don't need to depend on that anymore. I don't need that. I have direct access to source anytime I want it. And so do you. So does every single one of us, right? So I think if we do that, then, and we realize that those things only delayed us, okay? Because we're still counting on something to get us there, to open us up, right? It's time to drop them. And for me, it's time, okay? The real initiation that we're going through is not going to be told to you in the stars. That's not where the real initiation is. I think where it is it's choosing where we want to be when there's nobody watching and we don't have anybody but ourselves to guide us. What if you tried that? Try that, okay? Okay, so when there's no energy peaking and there's nothing aligning but our own inner clarity. So there comes a moment when we need to stop using any maps, any guidance, and we need to let ourselves become a compass. And then what I wrote at the end of this is it feels like it's right now. It feels like right now, this is our timeline. Like I even kind of felt like that really started with 2025, and now we've passed the middle line of 2025. And if there is ever a time to fully be where we want to be as ascending people, humans, consciousness, divine sources of God, this is it. This is the perfect time. And there might be there's going to be some rough moments. But then what I've also realized as this mellow has just stayed washed over me is that there's no reason I can't maintain it. I mean, it's maintained. I have these little bits of moments where I'll talk to somebody that's close to me that's really, really, really struggling, and I just feel hopeless and helpless to help them. And it kind of gets me into a funk, and I just kind of, it feels like I'm done with the suffering, and I just want this to all be over. And then I have those little moments, but they're so short now, and I can still maintain my empathy and my compassion, but I don't have to maintain the suffering. I can maintain my frequency of where I want to maintain my energies. The more you practice something, the easier and easier and easier it gets. And this I can promise you. So I'd love to know what you think about this. You know, did I say anything today that totally landed with you and was like, holy cow, that is me? I'd love to hear what you think. And if you feel so inclined, you know, drop me an email rather than put a comment under this. I mean, I get that totally. I always love hearing from you and seeing where you are, and maybe it's just like, hey, that resonated with me and I felt like, yeah, I'm there too. So thanks for tuning in today, guys. The Lionsgate portal ends, I think, in a couple days. There's a window of time. I know it peaks on August 8th, which was a couple days ago. But it's an interesting time, right? So thanks for being here today, guys. I hope that the rest of your day, the rest of your week is amazing and spectacular, and we will see you next time.